Welcome back. All right, so I've covered San Jose. I've covered Chicago. Now we're going to talk about the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks are an interesting team. They have been out of the playoffs for a while. They should be getting better, and I want to say next season things are going to get better. But I said that last year. They kind of did. So they ended up 27, 50, and 5, 59 points. That's 1 point better than last year, meaning they're about, I mean, if you improve 1 point every year, they're about 30 years from making the playoffs. It's not workable. So their draft lottery odds tell you that they're more likely to move down than move up. So if you're a pessimist, the odds kind of favor you. They have an 11.5% chance of drafting first. And if they do, and if they draft Celebrini, look out. Because this is a team that I think has a lot of good young talent. And once it all coalesces, 11.2% chance of drafting second, only a 7.8% chance of drafting third, 39.7% chance they draft fourth, and a 29.8% chance they draft fifth. So in all likelihood, they're probably going to draft fourth or fifth. And I don't think you're going to get immediate help at those draft positions, but we shall see. Their head coach, and again, based on the San Jose video I did a couple days back, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I would think Greg Cronin comes back next year. I should check my phone. But yeah, Greg Cronin should be back next season. And I think he did well with what he had for that first season. I did see negativity here and there, but you're going to see negativity here and there about every single coach in the league, in every sport. So Cronin's probably going to be back. Pat Verbeek, I think, has done a decent job of building up the prospect pool and adding a lot of young guys to the team. Now this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the team needs to get better. This playoff drought has reached 6 seasons. 6. So year 7, you need to start showing that you're getting closer. I've seen people talk about the attendance in Anaheim, and when we talk about Arizona being moved in, I've seen Anaheim. Anaheim would be next. No. Anaheim has this great tie-in with the fact that it's right next to Disneyland. It's not that far from Disneyland anyways. And it's a good market. You've just got 6 years now this team hasn't been a playoff team. That would cause attendance to drop everywhere in the National Hockey League. It is a standard that if a team's not competitive, you're going to have a harder time selling tickets for the event. They were 30th in goals for and 30th in goals allowed because Chicago and San Jose exist. So those 3 teams definitely down at the bottom of the standings for a reason. All 3 teams in a rebuild. But it does feel like of the 3, Chicago's still in the midst of it. San Jose is, they're not at the starting point, but they're kind of in the middle too. Anaheim should be starting to pull themselves out of this rebuild next season because they should have been pulling themselves out of it this year too. In fact, at one point this season, they'd won 6 in a row early in the season, and they were 7-4. So a 7-4 start to the season had people thinking, hey, maybe. And from there, they went 20, 46, and 5 to remind you, nope, they're still not quite good enough on the ice. I will come back to the cap hit or the cap space that the team will have on July the 1st. I added that as one of the permanent. Make sure you've got that in there because I'm going to be talking about that with every team. But for Anaheim, they don't have a cap space issue. Now, their top scorer, Frankie Vetrano, a career year for him. I don't expect him to do this again next season. He had 37 goals, 23 assists, 60 points, and he played all 82 games. He was fantastic. Troy Terry, 76 games, 20 goals, 34 assists, 54 points. They want more from Troy Terry. Troy Terry should be in the 70, 75 point range. McTavish, 64 games, 19 goals, 23 assists, 42 points. So he missed some games with injury, and it wasn't necessarily the star-making season you want with McTavish. There are a lot of young players on this team. A lot. Carlson leads the way. Leo Carlson, of course, they did the load management with him early in the season. He ends up playing 55 games, 12 goals, 17 assists, 29 points. But there were glimpses. There were moments. There were flashes of brilliance during this rookie season. And I really think he's got good instincts. I think he's got a really good career on the way. Just not every player comes into the league and plays really, really well out of the gate. Minchukov, 63 games, 4 goals, 24 assists, 28 points. I like Pavel Minchukov. I think he's a good defenseman, and his numbers will probably get better as the team gets better as well. Where the real intrigue comes in is Trevor Zegras. Trevor Zegras saying that, the trade talk during the season, it's upsetting, it's concerning. But he only played 31 games due to injury, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points. So a little bit below a half a point per game. Not what you want. It's not what you want if you're Zegras or if you're the Ducks. Of course, they had really contentious negotiations the last time the contract was up. It's not a long contract that he's on, and the fact that he hasn't played great and he's had trouble staying healthy, I do expect his name to stay out there during the summer. I will talk about him again, but it was not a great year for Zegras. Zellweger, on the other hand, I thought played well after being brought into the lineup. 26 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. He's going to be a top 4 defenseman in the NHL. Luno, they're bringing along as well. He played 7 games this year, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. He's envisioned as a top 4 defenseman as well. So between Mintyukov, Zellweger, and Luno, there's something starting to show up here when it comes to their defense that's kind of exciting. And there are others. There are other young defensemen as well that have yet to come in. Colangelo had 1 goal in 3 games. Nestorenko had 1 goal in 3 games. And Cutter Gauthier makes his debut at the end of the season. A lot of excitement around him. Of course, they traded Drysdale for him. He had the 1 assist in the 1 game that he played. So there's a lot of good young players here. And I think with Cutter Gauthier being with the team right from training camp on, there will be those who pick him as the Calder favorite, I would think, next season. But we shall see. Dostal outperformed Gibson, which is good news if you're Dostal. It's bad news if you're Gibson, or maybe his agent, or maybe the Ducks. So again, we'll talk about Gibson again later, but yeah, the numbers: Dostal 14, 23, and 3 with a 902 save percentage. Gibson 13, 27, and 2 with an 888 save percentage. I think Dostal passed Gibson by the end of the season, and so the idea of trading him becomes a little more complicated. Again, I will come back to that. On their way, you've got Nathan Gauthier, center. Now, I'm pretty sure it's Gauthier, but if it's Gauthier, that's going to cause some confusion. But yeah, center, and he's considered to be one of the better young prospects yet to come in. And then they have 2 goaltending prospects to keep an eye on, in Damian Clara and Callie Klang. So there are 2 goalie prospects there, so if you move Gibson out, eventually one of those guys becomes your backup goaltender. The idea being Dostal, very likely to be the starter. Or maybe Gibson gets traded in the summer and you bring somebody else in as the backup. Because I still think Gibson's going to be on the block, and I'd be kind of surprised if he doesn't get traded. But again, we will come back to that. Their UFA list is short. Obviously, at the deadline, they would have made sure of this. Silverberg, UFA, but he's retired as well. So Silverberg's career comes to an end. Ben Myers, brought over from Colorado. If they decide to keep him, I'm sure they can figure it out. If they don't, that's fine too. Lagesson, depth defenseman, much the same thing. Probably just let him go to free agency. The restricted free agents gets a little more interesting. Isaac Lundestrom, if he can play a full season and he can play his game the way that I know that he can be very productive for this team and a pretty solid threat to them, I think, both ends of the ice. Max Jones, slow in terms of his development. I remember when they drafted Jones and Steele, and I thought, this should be really good for Anaheim. Nope. Sam Steele has bounced around the league a little bit, and I don't know with Jones. I don't know what they're going to do. Leeson, I thought, played well enough to warrant bringing back. Grew, same thing. Lindstrom. Lindstrom, I thought, after being traded to Anaheim, had a pretty good run. And so, yeah, I think Gustav Lindstrom. I've liked him since he debuted in Detroit. I know there's not a lot of offense there, but defensively, I think he's solid enough to be a good top 6 defenseman. Lacombe had a good year at times, rough year at others. Like many of the Anaheim Ducks did. That's how you end up 27, 50, and 5. But Lacombe, good defenseman, third pairing in all likelihood once they're better. And Vakanainen, restricted free agent as well. I was so glad he finally got that goal after he had, 3 disallowed before he got his first NHL goal to actually count. To the point where when he got it, I didn't want to write his name on the board because I was convinced it was going to be offside or goalie interference or somebody else tipped it. But Vakanainen, a player I obviously track, and being a Bruins fan, I like to see how he's doing. So when we look at their draft picks, they don't have a lot of additional draft picks, but they have a few. They have a first-round pick this year from Edmonton. They have a second-round draft pick this year from Boston. They have 2 extra third-round picks, 1 from Pittsburgh and 1 from San Jose. So not like a lot of early picks in those rounds, but the San Jose one's pretty early. And so, we'll see with the Ducks what they do with those extra picks. Now, the 2 contracts to keep an eye on this summer, and I have to say contracts, because even though the salary cap's going to go up, I don't think these contracts are going to be particularly attractive, considering the numbers. For John Gibson, his cap hit $6.4 million, and it's until 2027. So he's still got a couple years left on that, and he's 30 years of age. So for a team to pick up Gibson, either they have to have a bunch of cap space, or the Ducks are probably going to have to figure something out. I mean, there's 3-team trades and all that. There's retention. There's however you want to go about it. But Gibson being traded at this point, coming off of a down year statistically, might be more of a challenge to get him moved than it might have been if they'd done it last summer. And Trevor Zegras, he's 23 years of age, but considering his injury history, his $5.75 million cap hit until 2026, would a team want to bring that in? And I know Montreal fans all year were speculating on him going there. I'm not even sure where that started. I'm not really sure where the whole Zegras to Montreal thing started, but I expect that to start up this summer as well. But he's a restricted free agent when his contract ends in 2026, and we know Zegras has the talent. We know what he can do. He has shown it at times. It's just that consistent night in, night out. He had a great rookie season. Things fell off for him in year 2. Now we're looking at him coming off of a year where it's been injury riddled. So we'll see where he is next fall. I would think he stays in Anaheim. I would think that contract would be a little bit difficult to trade. Plus, if you're Pat Verbeek, you don't want to sell low. You don't want to sell off Trevor Zegras with the idea of, well, he had a rough year, and then watch him go somewhere else, put up 35 goals, have all these highlight reel moves and everything, and then kind of look foolish for trading him when you did. But I don't know. I don't know if Zegras is gonna get it together at the NHL level, because again, 6 goals in 31 games. Whether playing 100% or not, I understand he wasn't 100% for a lot of those games, but it's an ugly stat line. And if I'm a general manager for another team, I'm probably not giving you the farm in exchange for Trevor Zegras. But we shall see how that turns out, and whether or not Gibson decides to stick around or what's going to happen there. Last summer, remember, there was that whole Gibson's never playing another game for Anaheim. And then he did. He played a whole season. So we'll see how it goes. But I think he's been a good foot soldier for this team for a long time. I just don't know that they're going to win soon. And again, Gibson's 30 years of age. I don't blame him for wanting to go somewhere where he has a chance to win, maybe get himself a championship. But that story's not all written yet. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. What do you think the Ducks do this summer with the fact they have $33,005,833 in cap space? Because even if they re-sign their RFAs, they're going to have a ton of cap space next year. And again, I think with a couple of additions, maybe one up front and an experienced blue liner. They've already got Gudas there on the blue line who had quite the season in Anaheim. He played really well. I think with one addition up front, one on the blue line, this team could get better, but I do think it's a limited amount of improvement we see. If they get up to, say, 75 or 80 points next year, I think Ducks fans would take that. Just some kind of improvement. They just need to show some level of improvement. Again, let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.